There was that big twist in James Gunn's Superman involving Superman's parents, and following the release of the film, James Gunn went on record to defend his decision to include it by saying it's something that's happened in the comics in the past. And I talked about this at the time, saying just because it was in the comics doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea to include it, because a lot of people didn't like it in the comics and they didn't like it when it was in James Gunn's movie. But now it's looking like either James Gunn himself or perhaps the studio are backpedaling on that one, because since the film has been released digitally, some people have noticed some additional information surrounding it that suggests that maybe it wasn't real after all. But before we get into all that, if you're new to the channel here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you can, leave a comment and hit the like button too, because it helps me out here. So this article from Cosmic Big News is talking about it with this headline: James Gunn backtracks on Jor-El in Superman digital release. And changing stuff in a movie following the theatrical release for its digital release or for its home video release, that's not something unusual. Many studios will do that. But this is kind of a big point because, like I said, this was controversial when it came out, something that James Gunn tried to defend, but apparently it didn't really work out that well. So either he went back and tried to retcon it, or maybe the studio mandated that it be changed because a lot of audiences didn't like it. James Gunn may have backtracked on Jor-El with the digital release of the Superman movie, which became available on Friday. Gunn, for whatever reason, changed things up with Jor-El and essentially made Superman's father into a Viltrumite, a bad guy indeed. That makes it pretty clear the footage was legit, as Lex said it was, and even Mr. Terrific. And that was one of the things defending the decision in the movie, is some people were saying it wasn't real. It was fabricated by Lex Luthor in order to smear Superman. And while there is an argument to be had with that, the movie made it ambiguous at best whether or not that was the case. James Gunn seemed to go on record saying that no, this was genuine, but now there is more stuff coming out in the digital release that shows that no, it probably was fabricated after all. Then Gunn came out in a post interview and told fans they're out of luck. Nice, right? From the head of studio. Yeah, that was kind of his initial response to people who didn't like his creative decision. As I've gone over, no one liked the scene. Even Kevin Smith, who likes everything, didn't like what Gunn did with Jor-El. That actually a pretty funny shot at Kevin Smith right there, because yeah, he pretty much likes everything coming out from major studios. Gunn Superman bombed internationally, while at Comic-Con, not one person liked the scene. Also, I know Asians who hated what Gunn did with the kaiju scene and how Gunn handled Jor-El. It sends the message that the families of immigrants are evil. They took it personally and felt insulted. Yeah, and that's something a lot of people even brought up when Gunn, prior to the release of the film, was saying, building up the whole notion that Superman is an immigrant and trying to make that a key focus of the movie. I mean, maybe saying it's a key focus of the movie is a little bit of a stretch, but a lot of people working on this movie were trying to emphasize the immigrant aspect of Superman. And then the movie comes out and it turns out that Superman is supposed to be a conqueror of the world. So then it's like, well, what are you saying? Are you saying immigrants are just trying to conquer their new home? Because that's sure what it looks like. Maybe that's not what Gunn intended when it came out, but that's kind of the impression that it gets. So I can see because of that, that's the reason why they might go back and change it, or at least make it seem like, okay, that's not true after all, and Lex Luthor was behind the footage. Well, with the digital release of Superman, James Gunn may have changed things with Jor-El. Eagle-eyed fans spotted the following, which seemingly reveals that the message was actually doctored by Lex. The Daily Planet shows Luthor was behind the false image of Superman's parents' message, claiming that. So it's basically this ticker at the bottom of the screen. It reads that it was a fabricated message by Lex Luthor in order to try to smear Superman and make him look bad in the public eye, which, okay, if that was in the original version of the film, apparently a lot of people missed that, but when it's on streaming and people can go back and look up stuff, I can see why more people would spot it now. But it does feel kind of weird, because if it was in the original movie that was released theatrically, someone would have brought this up. Even James Gunn himself may have brought this up if that was in the original version of the movie, but even he didn't mention it. He basically just tried to defend the decision by, like I said, saying that it was something that was in the comic books. He gave interviews talking about that in the past. Let me scroll down in this article here, talking about his interview when he was trying to justify it, saying he needed somebody, okay, just talking about Bradley Cooper playing Jor-El. let's see, the controversial twist. Okay, maybe this is the bit. In the original Superman, Brando as Jor-El read the now iconic line, "They can be great people." Look how no, this isn't it. I should have looked through this beforehand to see what Gunn's actual quote is. Okay, Gunn's film upends this by revealing the second half in the holographic message. Jor-El and Lara instruct Kal-El to conquer Earth, rule its primitive inhabitants without mercy, and take multiple lives to repopulate the Kryptonian race. This alteration has provoked widespread criticism from fans who view it as a fundamental betrayal of Jor-El's character, in which it is a betrayal of Jor-El's character, traditionally depicted as a wise, ethical scientist warning of Krypton's doom. On X, reactions have been swift and heated, with many labeling the change as character assassinations, which I would agree with that characterization of it. Some posts from various people saying how they didn't like that decision at all on this. Gunn's justification: honoring the character while taking risks. In response to the criticism, Gunn has defended the changes as thoughtful evolutions rather than outright betrayals. In an interview with Comic Book Movie, he emphasized his deep fandom and commitment to Superman's integrity. "I'm a huge Superman fan," Gunn said. "So first of all, I had to trust myself that I was going to honor the pieces of Superman that we needed to keep the same, and also allow myself to make changes where changes might work and wouldn't go against the integrity of who the character is." And so I think that was simply dealing with some of those things, was simply dealing with allowing ourselves to change part of the story in a way that was interesting to the DCU, and that wasn't something that went against who Superman was. And it has been something that's been played with in the comics before. So saying it's been in the comics before. And at the time I was saying, like, just because it's been in the comics doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing, because comics evolve from when they're originally published. That's just kind of normal. But the things that resonate with audiences are the ones that continue on, and those stay in later iterations of that character. When something is tried out in the comics and people don't like it, well, then that's dropped and it's just treated as a one-off thing, and it's never used again in future iterations. Jor-El being this type of character who wants Superman to conquer the planet, that's something, according to James Gunn, that was used in the comics in the past and really hasn't been used later on, which suggests audiences don't like it. And if you're going to do something for the that you're pulling from the comic books, it's probably not a good idea to do something that audiences have already shown that they didn't like. Now, if this is them trying to retcon it or trying to make some clarification on it so that to remove the ambiguity, then fine. I mean, they're allowed to do that. But I think the reason why this is happening is coming down from the studio. I don't think it's James Gunn's decision. I think because the movie underperformed at the box office and got shoved into streaming a lot sooner than what it was anticipated, I think the studio is starting to step in and not necessarily going to allow James Gunn to have the creative say that he would have had this movie been a financial success for the studio. So this might have some further ramifications and be a taste of what to expect when it comes to future DC movies, because if this movie turned out to be a multi-billion-dollar hit or a billion-dollar hit, then I think the studio would have given James Gunn a huge slack on what he can do with the DCU moving forward. But since it was an underperformer for the studio, I think he's going to have a lot more oversight, even though he's in charge of the creative aspect of it. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Does it feel like this is just trying to retcon what happened in the movie in order to remove the ambiguity to it? Or do you think this was there all along and no one, including James Gunn, apparently noticed it? Comment below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you can, click the like button and share the video, because it helps out with the channel. Thank you.